Bonjour, and welcome back to another episode of the Bloomera podcast. I'm your host, Brienne. This episode is a part on our series of the seasons of growth. It's based on the seasons and cycles both in growth and in life. I'm talking about death, rebirth, rooting, sprouting, rising, and blooming. This is the ultimate growth series to help you enter your bloom era. And we are doing it together because this podcast is entering its own bloom era. The Root and Rise podcast has experienced its own death, rebirth, and is coming out with a fresh new name, the Bloom Era podcast. But really, this is about your bloom era. This podcast has always been dedicated to your growth, your healing, and your empowerment. And it will continue to be, just with a brand new name, breathing new life into my brand, my podcast, and my work. I'm still here to deliver you the same revitalizing energy of letting go, allowing change into your life, embracing that change, and stepping into the life that you want and deserve. Entering into your bloom era, anytime you find yourself entering a new season in life, I hope that you'll save this series and use it to help you move through those seasons with a little bit more ease. Because these are cycles and seasons, they will come and they will go. We will move through these seasons more than once. And the more we do it, the more resilience we will build, the more confidence we will have in ourselves to move through those seasons, and the more tools we've picked up along the way to move through them with more ease than ever before. In the first two parts of this series, Death and Rebirth, we discussed the importance of letting go to grow, and the chance we all have for rebirth and reinvention, even after it feels like a wildfire has blown through your life. We also talked about how to take control of your life when it feels like everything is out of control. To do a controlled burn, so to speak, where you clear out behaviors, relationships, habits, or experiences that no longer serve you. You were given homework along the way to embrace your feelings because you cannot heal what you refuse to feel. I asked you to find the lessons from everything you are letting go, to build from that and create a new life for yourself. We did this through rewriting our self-story, creating a vision board, and I even encouraged you to find a ritual, ceremony, or rite of passage to acknowledge this profound change that you are going through. If you missed those episodes, make sure you go back and listen to them. They are essential steps if you want to grow and truly transform your life. So, we have gone through the death and the rebirth seasons of growth. The next season of growth is rooting. It's about the inner work necessary to spark the outer changes that you want. This is the rebuild after the death and the rebirth, after that wildfire or controlled burn came through our lives. We are planting new seeds in our minds, our heart, and our lives, ones that will help us grow to our full potential. We are returning to our roots and tending to them in the ways that they deserve. This season is the snake shedding all of its skin. And I can't wait for you to see what's waiting on the other side. This beginning stage can feel a lot like Bambi's first steps. You might feel awkward and unsure, but you are doing the damn thing, and I am here to support you in that. We will overcome the fear of the unknown, assess and realign all areas of our life, set new intentions, new routines, and manage the outside relationships, all while starting small. And because I understand how overwhelming it can be, I've done a lot of the work for you. I created a Seasons of Growth email challenge just for you, where every 2 weeks throughout this series, you receive a customized set of journal prompts, positive affirmations, song recommendations, quotes, and more related podcasts for whichever season of growth you are in. You can also download my Seasons of Growth digital planner for free or purchase a physical copy through my website. All of those links will be included in the episode description. These are designed to help guide you through these seasons with a little more ease, so you know what steps to take next and you aren't just stuck to fend for yourself throughout all of this. Whether you choose to utilize my Seasons of Growth planner or email challenge, what I really want to drive home here is that you have to be dedicated to your healing and your growth every single day. It's not enough to just want, visualize, or desire these changes in your life. You have to take the steps to get there. The inner work required for this is work, and I can't do it for you, but I can give you all of the tools, insights, and practices possible to do it for yourself. I can also give you a reminder that this season of growth might be a tricky one. Because while the last 2 seasons brought a lot of noticeable change into our lives, this season of growth happens below the surface, in the roots, not anywhere that our naked eye can see. I've explained what Blumera stands for, what your Blumera stands for, but let me paint you a Bob Ross style picture of what Root and Rise stands for, what this whole podcast was born from. Imagine a flower, ideally your most favorite flower. In order for that flower to bloom, it had to pass through a few stages first. It started out as a seed in the beginning. That seed formed roots beneath the surface, strong roots, to anchor and ground the plant during its growth process. This growth was invisible above the surface, much like the inner growth that happens in each one of us. But once a strong and solid foundation had been built within its root system, this plant now has the ability to sprout and rise through the other side of the surface, standing tall and proud, preparing to bloom. When I first began collecting and propagating plants, there was one rubber tree stick in particular that taught me a powerful lesson. I spent 4 months watering this stick. No growth was happening, and it quickly became a joke among my friends that I was doing nothing but watering a stick. One day I dug it up just to see if anything was happening below the surface, and I was surprised to see a beautiful root system hiding underneath the surface. If you're watching this over on YouTube or Spotify, you can see the stick and its impressive root system on the screen right now. I couldn't help but see beauty in the strength, grounding, and growth that happens beneath the surface before any growth ever shows above ground. And I could no longer ignore that same beauty, strength, grounding, and growth happening within myself, happening within all of us, and the root system that we have been building doing the inner work that is unseen to anybody else. My need to share information was born from that. I wanted to help others root and rise and bloom in their life, despite any wildfires or controlled burns that passed through. I grew a deep desire to help others root and rise after their own wildfires, big or small. I wanted to nurture their root systems and help them rise so that they can bloom and thrive. Your root system is your mind. That is where your inner work is done. We've addressed a lot of the limiting beliefs or negative self-stories that we have been telling ourselves for a while now. We talked about that earlier in this series. When those stories start telling you that you're too much, too difficult, too broken, or maybe that you're not good enough, talented enough, smart enough, or worthy enough, those thoughts are like seeds being planted in our brains. The more that we continue to think about them, the more we are watering them and allowing them to grow in our mind. More simply put, your thoughts become feelings. Those feelings become actions. The actions become habits, and habits shape our lifestyle. Your thoughts have a much greater impact than most people realize. Identifying your limiting beliefs and negative thoughts is one step towards the growth that you are seeking. They are holding you back in life, telling you lies, and filling you with self-doubt. By changing the way we think, we are actually able to rewire our brains. We have neurons in our brain that are wired to think a certain way, and this is research-based information. But by changing the way that we think, we are actually able to rewire our brain, create new neural pathways, and rewire old ones. Yes, you can train your brain. When we are stuck in old ways of thinking, and that thought travels down that neural pathway that it's used to going down, like I described earlier, those thoughts become feelings. The feelings become actions. Actions become habits. And you get your overall outcome from that. This is called neuroplasticity. The great thing about neuroplasticity is it means that we can change the way we think. And we can change the outcomes. I want you to do an exercise with me if you can. Imagine that you and I pluck each negative thought out of your brain, one by one, pulling them from their roots, and plant new seeds in their place. Seeds of compassion. Seeds with empowering thoughts. I want you to seriously imagine how good it would feel to move through life with those compassionate, empowering, and positive thoughts in your mind. How would that change the way that you are showing up every single day? Physically, what would that look like for you? What about mentally or emotionally? Imagine the positive self-talk that you would be practicing and the confidence that it would give you to live wholeheartedly and authentically. Practicing empowered thinking can lead to empowered feeling. Empowered feeling can lead to empowered actions. Empowered actions can lead to empowered habits. And those empowered habits will help shape an empowered lifestyle. A lifestyle that you very much deserve. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it can get worse before it gets better when you're doing that deep inner work. Going back to plants, plants are incredibly adaptable. Just think about plants that are able to grow through concrete. It's truly incredible to see because it seems like it would be impossible for a plant to break through that. We too are adaptable. And if you have houseplants, you might know how sensitive or reactive that they can be to any sort of change, even positive ones. Some plants get all droopy and dramatic and sad looking just because you gave them healthier soil and a bigger pot for them to grow in. Changes they really needed. Maybe even a better environment with the appropriate level of shade or sun. It might look bad at first and make you wonder if you have made the wrong choice to change, but they are just taking a second to adapt to their new environment. And so are we in this season of growth. And just like those plants will soon perk up, we will too. We can start by changing our soil, our surroundings. Let's assess all of the areas in our life to align with this new life that we are building, this new way of being. If you are in a safe position to write or reflect, I have a little activity for you. If you are driving or doing chores, don't worry. You can still participate, just not on paper. You can also return to this exercise later on to get the full impact and visual of writing it all down. So I want you to divide your paper into 6 sections, or just write these down as they come up. We are going to assess our homes, our body, our social life, our routines, our relationship with self, and our self-story. We'll start easy with something outside of ourselves, our homes. I don't know if you've ever played Sims before. There's usually a needs or overall health meter for your little Sims character that assesses your home, the items you've placed in it, the items you don't clean up, and the decor. That little home meter plays an overall role in your Sims happiness levels. Our homes and the physical spaces that we occupy each day can have the same impact on our own happiness levels. So clear up some clutter, decorate, or just consider rearranging some spaces in your home. Seeing these changes outside of yourself can help inspire changes within yourself. Another place where outside changes can inspire inside changes is our closet. Not everyone cares about clothes or fashion, and I respect that. But just know that clothes are a wonderful way for us to express ourselves. They can embody who you are trying to be and make you feel more of that energy within yourself. If you aren't into fashion or worried about your style, that is perfectly fine. But I still recommend clearing out clothes that don't fit you. Whether it's that they don't fit this new era of you or they don't fit your physical body, since our bodies change with us. And you probably already saw this one coming from a mile away, but I do recommend adding some plants into your home. Research shows that adding plants to your home or your office can help reduce stress, both in mind and body. If you ever need somebody to encourage you to go out and buy more plants, I'm your girl. It's my favorite form of retail therapy because it's evidence-based. If you are watching this over on YouTube, I'll include some pictures of my house plants. I like to keep my house very jungle-like. I'm sure that's not that hard to believe. Continuing on with assessing areas outside of ourselves, let's take a look at your social circle and your social calendar. Do you have any one-sided relationships, friendships, or relationships that are draining you of that precious energy that you need to grow up and glow up? Or are they helping you grow, empowering and supporting you? And I'm not saying to rely on them for everything. Trust me, I get that other people have their own lives, their own things happening, and they're busy too. This is about making sure that they aren't taking more than they are giving, as long as you are giving back in return too, because relationships do take our time and energy. That can be healthy when it is a healthy exchange between both parties. Think about plants. If you keep unhealthy or dying leaves on your plant, they continue to take energy away from that plant's growth. Energy that could be spent forming new buds or new leaves. Energy that could allow that plant to reach higher heights or a more luscious fullness. Taking off of those leaves is called dead leafing. It can be done at any point during that plant's life, the beginning, the middle, or the end. I brought it up during the death or letting go season of growth, and that is exactly why I'm bringing it up again. You may find new dead leaves in your life that need to be removed as you start growing and moving through these seasons of growth. because you are that plant. And those dead leaves are those toxic relationships, bad habits, or unhealthy behaviors that you are hanging on to. So let's prune those dead leaves. Leave them behind and start allowing your energy to go towards the areas that you are hoping to grow. This is how you grow and glow. Let's also take a look at your social calendar and activities and work to expand them. Try new activities, new experiences, new foods. Join a book club, sign up for a painting class, or find a local pickup sports game in your area. Whatever it is that interests you the most, I guarantee you can find it somewhere around you or online. Yes, you are probably going to have to leave your comfort zone, but that is actually a beautiful place for growth to happen and to meet new people aligned with your interests. Make time on your social calendar for fun and play. This inner growth is hard and it is heavy. You need to add some light into your life and some laughs. You can turn to your inner child or what you used to like to do when you were a kid if you need ideas for what to do for play or fun. Or you can look to the things that you've always wanted to try but maybe felt a little too frivolous compared to all of the other serious things that you have at hand. And if you have kids, lean into their fun and play. Join them and participate in activities. Now it's going to get a little bit harder. We are going to start assessing ourselves, starting with our physical being, our body. How have past experiences impacted your body? The body keeps the score, meaning that there is a mind and body connection that is impossible to ignore. I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and I've actually developed a secondary stress disorder over the past year after experiencing an assault, large amounts of stress that came after that, lack of adequate support, and honestly, me silencing myself after that assault. My heart rate even went up 10 beats per minute the day of my assault for months. I could no longer deny what was happening in my inner world because it was starting to show up in my outer world. That mind-body connection meant that my body started showing signs of what was happening within my mind. It was a huge wake-up call for me. I have had to completely rethink how I navigate life and how I care for my body. Getting more rest wasn't something that I just wanted to do or should have done. It became something that I needed to do. I needed to practice more self-care, deeper than bubble baths, nails, or face masks, although those are pretty great. I needed self-care for my nervous system. I had to focus on feeling my feelings and completing my stress cycle and allowing that stress to leave my body through working out, punching my punching bag, or just going for a walk. I don't recommend getting to this point where you have no other choice but to do damage control. And that is why I have included body in this assessment. We aren't talking about weight. We aren't talking about exercising for superficial reasons. We are talking about paying attention to the signals that your body is sending you and getting ahead of it to care for its needs, as well as prioritizing rest. This inner work is a lot of work. Try to balance that out with rest. Start a practice to help regulate your nervous system if it feels dysregulated. Yoga, walking, and meditation are wonderful places to start, especially if you aren't sure what that looks like right now. If you are interested in guided yoga or guided meditation exercises, let me know. But for now, I just want you to move your body, stretch your body, and hydrate your body. Our bodies are made up of just about 60% water, which is why I've included a water and hydration tracker in my Seasons of Growth planner to make sure that we are all drinking enough water throughout the day. This is also why I have a personal practice of moisturizing my skin with coconut oil, face lotion, and chapstick every day. It's become a routine that I cannot go without. And speaking of routines, let's assess our current routines. What parts of them are helping you grow? What parts of them are supporting your rest? For you to care for yourself. Consider the person you are growing into, who you are in your bloom era. What would this new version of yourself do in their daily routines? Start living this way on your own right now. Use that vision board that we talked about in the rebirth season of growth and build off of that. Start applying those changes to your life. Make that vision board come to life, to your life. And we can't change our lives without assessing ourselves first. I want you to consider this new version of yourself and ask yourself, how do you want to treat yourself? How do you want to talk about yourself? How do you want to care for yourself? I'm also going to ask you to sit down and and spend some time identifying your needs. Too often in life, we get so focused on the needs of others, so much so that our own needs get lost or completely ignored in the mix. Sometimes we've never even had an opportunity to bring our needs to the table. Well, it is time to start doing that. This can be done through some of the practices that we've already talked about throughout this entire series, like resting, caring for yourself, your body, your mind, your relationships. Your needs can also be identified through self-reflection and journaling. I have many guided journaling and reflective thinking sessions available on this podcast that I'll make sure to link down below for you, along with some inner child work and reparenting practices. These practices can also help you identify what your needs are. The last place we are going to assess today is your self-story. We are writing a new narrative, unlocking this new version of yourself. And it's time that your story matched that. Use your vision board, the journaling prompts from my Seasons of Growth email challenge, and start crafting a new story for yourself. One that acknowledges this transformation, honors the past you, and celebrates the person you are now. As we are unpacking all of this, literally and figuratively, from your home and your closets to your body and your mind, let's unpack a few more things to help us create space for who we are becoming, who we want to become. The first is to unpack generational trauma. What patterns do you notice in your family? What grievances do you have with them? And then look at yourself. What cycles are you stuck in? What patterns of behavior have you picked up along the way that may no longer align with this new version of you are growing into? Observe this on a personal level, mental level, emotional level, relational level, societal level, and even a global level. The next is to unpack the patriarchy. I have listeners all over the globe, and I know that there are several societies that are considered relatively egalitarian. If you do not live in a patriarchal society, I'm incredibly happy for you. But I still suggest tuning into this part so you can understand those of us who are living in a patriarchal society and what we're up against. For women, growing up in a patriarchal society means that we are expected to meet certain standards. We are expected to fit into a pretty specific mold. We have been conditioned to be polite, meek, mild, the peacekeepers, the people pleasers, and the caretakers, caring for others before we ever care for ourselves. Stepping outside of this mold is often discouraged. Women are told that they are out of line, too angry, too loud, too aggressive, when the very same behavior from a man is rewarded. He's considered strong, assertive, bold, and a leader. I know that I also have men listening to this podcast, and it is my intention to be gentle with men while having this discussion. I am married to and love a man, and I'm raising 2 more of them. There are a number of men in my life who I love and respect. I hope to be compassionate with them when discussing the ways that the patriarchy hurts me, because the patriarchy hurts men as well. Society has failed them for a long time now. They aren't given the language that they need to communicate their feelings, or space to practice empathy without shame. And the only emotion that society seems to expect from them is anger. But we know, and we hope, not all men, right? Some are playing an active role in dismantling the patriarchy and the toxic beliefs that come along with it. That all deserves to be acknowledged in this conversation. The patriarchy is hurting all of us living in patriarchal societies. The sooner that we start unpacking that and living in our authentic truths, the sooner that we can leave behind this version of ourselves that we've been socialized to be through these harmful social constructs. Something that goes hand in hand with unpacking the patriarchy is unpacking gender roles and bridging any gaps that we may have in our lives. This means finding the areas that we are working maybe harder than we should to get the same results as others. I talked about this in my episode on bridging the gap in community and finding community to bridge gaps with Rowan Whitehead. We talked about how to achieve equal labor division in our homes, sharing the mental and emotional load with our partners, and how to gain equal free time from bridging these gaps. Because the truth is, if you are taking on more than your fair share of household chores, childcare, managing appointments, or social events, you are taking more time away from your healing and your growth. and your overall happiness. Let's also unpack the fear surrounding change, because we are going through a lot of it in this series. Change is the only true constant in our lives. And it's totally normal to feel fear or anxiety in all of the changes that you're experiencing. But you can't let that fear drive you or keep you from that transformation. Think about how scary it is to not grow, to not learn or evolve or welcome new things into your life. That to me is far more scary than change and transformation. These seasons of growth are designed to bring you back to yourself, not back to your old way of being, because we've already decided that some of those ways are no longer serving you. So what's the point in hanging on to them? Because it's familiar, we're comfortable. Growth can be messy and it can be ugly at times. Think of a caterpillar's cycle of growth. You're building the chrysalis around yourself. You've made the decision to change, to transform, and now you are on your way to be a butterfly. But that caterpillar doesn't just transform into a butterfly immediately. It actually breaks down its physical being completely into what is essentially goop. It's a liquefaction process, completely letting go of what was to rebuild and rebirth into a newly transformed butterfly. You might feel like that goop right now. Not who you were and not yet what you want to be. Just kind of a mess, kind of ugly. Really not at all where you want to be. And that's okay. That is a part of our process, just like the caterpillars. We aren't going to stay goop forever, but we have to pass through this phase of life before we can move on to the next. Just like a caterpillar closes itself off from the rest of the world to do its inner work, that can become a part of our process of growth and transformation too. When talking about reinventing herself after challenges and traumas in her Times Person of the Year article, Taylor Swift says, "That took me down psychologically to a place I've never been before. I moved to a foreign country. I didn't leave a rental house for a year. I was afraid to get on phone calls. I pushed away most people in my life because I didn't trust anyone anymore. I went down really hard. After that recent sexual assault that I mentioned earlier from a stranger that I experienced when speaking up for myself, standing up against racism, sexism, and jokes about violence against women, I went through the exact same healing process. I thankfully was able to move immediately after. I move a lot as a military spouse, and the timing of that move was incredibly fortunate for me. But after that move, I hid in a hole. I didn't answer calls or texts from people. I barely talked to anyone outside of a very small, trusted circle of people because I couldn't bring myself to trust anyone. I didn't make any new friends, go to any new places alone, try to have any new experiences. I fell hard. Taylor Swift talking about this experience really resonated with me, and it helped me be a little bit more gentle with myself for cutting myself off from the rest of the world. Because it wasn't just me, and it's not just you. Sometimes part of the inner work and rooting process involves tuning more into yourself and tuning out of the rest of the world. Putting more energy into your growth and your healing. Putting your energy into yourself and not the world. But please don't cut yourself off entirely. Go for walks out in nature, see people, and keep a handful of people near you and continue to stay connected with them. Avoidance and isolation is incredibly easy to slip into during this season, but it is not healthy for you. There are going to be people who think that your rooting era feels more like a hibernation era. Trust me, we aren't sleeping on anything over here. There is a lot of internal work at play. They just can't see it. We cannot be our best selves if we cannot care for ourselves. If people are checking in on you and asking you what's going on, and you just don't have the social battery or the capacity to give others at this time, just let them know. It could be as simple as saying something like, "I've personally had a lot going on. I'm doing some healing and personal growth work lately, and I know I haven't been as available or responsive. I promise it's nothing to do with you, and I'm looking forward to catching up as soon as I have filled my cup up a bit more and have the energy to give you the attention you deserve. Thank you so much for checking in with me. I'm really grateful to have you in my life. When and if it feels safe, let people in. They offer light, support, a shoulder to lean on. They can lift some of the weight that you've been carrying, or just provide that laugh that you haven't expressed in a few days." I'm not the greatest at this, I will admit. The beginning of my rooting era looked a lot like a hibernation era. I'm still working on this, so ask your questions in the comments below or on my community survey for future content on how I managed to overcome all of this. Another suggestion that I have for this season of growth is to cultivate gratitude through some sort of daily practice. I've shared my nighttime alphabet gratitude practice in another episode that I'll link below. It's my favorite gratitude practice and truly helps me move through dark times. It can also be a practice in reframing those negative experiences into positive ones, finding the lesson. And yes, it does also help me sleep. I'm not saying gratitude is going to fix anything. The goal here is not to use gratitude to fix, but to fill the gaps that you will have leaving those dead leaves behind, to fill some of the spaces that you have available from all of that unpacking we did, and to fill some of the spaces that are limiting beliefs left behind. The goal is to start a new and positive habit that supports the new routines, new way of thinking, and the new way of being that we are aiming for. Whatever you choose to do for yourself and your inner work during this season of rooting, start small. I always find myself trying to commit to big things when I'm working for growth or transformation, like a 3-mile walk or an entire hour at the gym. And then when the moment comes to take action, it feels really overwhelming. I've had to be gentle with myself too and learn to start small. Maybe just getting out of the house. Doing one small fraction of your goal will feel so much better than not doing any of it at all. I aim to do 1% more each day. Some days I have the capacity to do 10%, but some days I only have the capacity for 1. I'm setting myself up for success by just aiming for that 1%. Doing this is building resilience. It's building confidence and trust in yourself, because setting a goal like this is making a promise to yourself. So I want you to make a promise to yourself right now and keep that promise to yourself. This is why I designed my planner, to hold myself accountable, and why I'm offering it to you, so you can do the same. And look, I know that the inner work that you are doing right now is hard. Even if no one else can see it, I can see it. You are here with me doing the damn thing, putting in the work, and growing beneath the surface. I am so proud of you for that. I hope that you are proud of yourself for that too. And if not, just know that that is completely normal too. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, stepping into a new version of yourself can feel a lot like Bambi's first steps. You might feel awkward and unsure, but you are growing. And it doesn't matter how much you are growing. That's not what we're focusing on here. You are growing. You are doing it. In the next episode, we are going to dive into the season of sprouting, when you start showing up into the world as this new version of yourself. But this new version also comes with feeling a little bit unsure, insecure, and maybe even some mistakes along the way. We will talk about all of that and focus on self-compassion, turning those mistakes into motivation, and finding the confidence that you need to step into who you are. We are also going to discuss what to do when others don't receive your new era very well. They have become familiar with who you were, and change can be hard for all. Sometimes people aren't that supportive, so we will need to set boundaries and actually maintain them. Don't worry, I've got you through that process too. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss out on it. And if you haven't already caught up on the previous seasons of growth, death, letting go, rebirth, and reinvention, make sure you do that now. They are necessary steps for your growth and entering into this new era of you. In the first 2 parts of this series, Death and Rebirth, we discussed the importance of letting go to grow and the chances we all have for rebirth and reinvention, even after it feels like a wildfire has blown through your life. We also talked about how to take control of your life when it feels like everything is out of control, to do a controlled burn, so to speak, where you clear out behaviors, relationships, habits, or experiences that no longer serve you. Thank you so much for being here with me for another episode of the Bloomera podcast, and for joining me in another part of this series on the seasons of growth. You can get my planner, join my email challenge, and find any of the links that I mentioned below in the episode description. You can also make this friendship official by following me over on Instagram or TikTok at Bloomera Podcast. Don't forget that your voice matters here. You have the power to shape future content by participating in the polls on Spotify, leaving a comment there or on YouTube, or by participating in my anonymous community survey. Let me know what you want to hear about next, or any questions that have come up along the way. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.